Hi, I'm Anthony Casey and welcome to episode 10 of Training, Thought and Truth. Okay, so this is episode 10 with Training, Thought and Truth, and I'm here with Fred Olivo. Is that right?
Yes, Olivo, correct.
Olivo. And basically, today we're going to talk a bit about Fred's book,
Yes, for God so loved even me.
Even Me, that's right. And you sent me a copy of this book, and I've only recently read it, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. First of all, congratulations for being able to get a book out there. It's a huge achievement. Not a lot of people have their own story to tell warrants a book. And the thing I did like about it, it was kind of short, but it was to the point, and it still had everything in the book that you needed to know. So I really enjoyed, have to say, I really enjoyed reading the book. First of all, I know we don't really know each other at all, but this is my own podcast, and it's called Training, Thought and Truth. And basically, it's new enough to me. This is only episode 10, and just basically a bit about my background and where I'm coming from with the podcast. Training is basically it's about physical, mental, and spiritual health and how to become balanced all together. So the physical is a lot of training. We talk about exercise, how it's diets, and how exercise is good for your mind, and that leads on to the mental side of things, and how you studying and certain books and having the right drive for life helps you, and then which also leads into the spiritual, because I think that's one thing you do need in your life to be complete. I think I was missing that part for a while, and only the last few years I kind of reconnected with my kind of more spiritual side, my Christian side more so, and so that's basically what this is about. So this would probably fall on the truth side of things. So I'm wondering if you might be able to bring me over your journey from kind of beginning to where you are now, like it's stated kind of in the book, and just how you get on and how the book came together, kind of, without you can say as much as you want about the book, or
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet you and for you having me on your podcast. I'm humbled, and
pleasure.
I just want you to know that the one of the reasons I was drawn to your page was the training. I am, ironically, that not only do I have a book and I have a testimony to the glory of Jesus Christ, but I do maintain a balanced life where I do have a workout regimen, and I've been in shape for many, many years, and it's a big part of my life.
It's great.
And my daily routine.
Yeah. That's great. That was going to be one of my questions.
As well as workouts.
Sorry, I lost you there. As well as the
as well as my spiritual workouts. I work out as a natural man as well as a spiritual man. I try to keep them balanced. I don't let the natural man get any bigger than the spiritual man.
Yeah, it's a good way of saying it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to keep that balance.
Yeah, the balance is all important, isn't it? And I think the balance between, that's it, because I think one helps the other. Your physical health, your mental health obviously helps your physical health. I think spiritual health helps both. And there's even scripture in the Bible you find on how physical training, exercise is good for the body. But I looked to delve. I'm very glad that you did seek out my page and you did come across it, and I was very happy for getting your book. And it was a few weeks before I was actually away in Israel. It was a birthday present from my girlfriend, and we were away last week, and we were in Nazareth, Jerusalem, Galilee. I had a big list of places I wanted to see. So we're 7 days, and we were traveling every day, But that's when I read the book, funny enough, and when I had time.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was kind of apt, It's good. It's a good place to read it, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the minute I did start reading, I was stuck into it, and even I was on the plane the way back, and getting off the plane, and she would tell you, I had to stop over in Munich and jumping on the little tram going between the two airplanes. I was reading the book and the tram and everything. It's very good. I couldn't, I highly recommend it. And I've recommended to friends of mine already. But so yeah, so if you want to talk a bit about the book, I guess it starts off where I would think kind of begins with your father in the very beginning of it, and I don't know if he kind of had the same this kind of gang mentality. Kind of, I remember the story about the dog, or maybe you might tell it a bit better than me.
Yes, I didn't know at the time. Of course, I learned more as I matured and I got older. But yes, I was literally born into a I'm not going to say a criminal family, but my father did do some things that were against the law, to supplement his income. Him as well as my oldest brother and other family members, they worked for these families in New York who, they collected money, they carried packages from one location to another. They did things like that, and I always knew that something was out the norm, because whenever on Saturdays my father and I would have time together when he would come visit, because him and my mother separated when I was very young. I think I might have been 3, 4 years old at the time, and I didn't remember the separation. But I remember I would go with him to different locations, restaurants, bars, bodega stores, supermarkets, and people will always give him money, envelopes of money. And I found that strange, but as a young kid, I didn't give it much thought. And I remember one time my mother laughed hysterically because she says, "Well, how did you and your father visit go today?" I said, "It went well, Ma." I said, "But I find the strangest thing." I said, "People seem to like that very much, because everywhere we go, somebody's always giving them money." And come to find out, that's what my father did to supplement his income. He collected money, and early on, as you read in the book, my father and his associates went to collect some money from some guys in the Bronx. Things got out of hand. My father wound up going to prison for murder, and him and I were separated for 18 years. He did 18 of 30 years.
Oh.
And he did come back out, and he restarted a life, and he just recently passed, but he passed knowing the Lord Jesus Christ as his Savior.
Really, yeah.
And so
sorry to hear his passing, but I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, he as well was redeemed. And so, as far as the book goes, I will be the last one to tell you I ever thought that my little life could, will be an interesting story, as I'm hearing. But I'll be honest with you, brother. I sat in that story for 20 years.
Yeah, that's true, because
the way it came about.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, the way it came about is, I am a youth minister, and I speak to, and I have sessions with youth, group sessions, and I would share bits and pieces, and they will be on the edge of their seat. The only time they would really give me the undivided attention is when I was speaking about, my former life, or some of my experiences. I never really went into in depth, even in the book. I mean, there's some things that I just would never ever speak about. And the things that I do speak about is the Lord allowed them to come to light because, the police were involved. So, things that, certain things I would just take to the grave. But I was literally brought into that life. So, and, I didn't choose that life. That life chose me. And so,
in a lot of ways, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. So the young people would encourage me to write a book, and and I will go back home at night and think about it. Say, the last thing I would think is that I could ever write a book or anyone would be interested. So finally, after 21 years, I started putting some words down on paper, and some people read it, as who helped me edit it, and they found it very interesting. And then I realized that it wasn't my story; it's God's story, and it's a story of His servant, the Lord, Sister Rodriguez. I was just a vessel, a main character in the story, and and I realized that as my children were born and my grandchildren was born, that I the way my life unfolded and who I am today. And when I look back on the years and how I came to today, I knew it had to be divine intervention. And I realized that the story had to be told because it's to the glory of God. It's to encourage those that feel hopeless, to encourage those that are in the church and know that God is still that Jesus is still in the miracle business, and that He can change your life. And the key here is change your life if you want it.
Yes,
He,
yeah.
he is not going to impose Himself upon you, but if you want to be a willing vessel, do you want change, which is I did at an early age, and He changed my life.
That's true, and I often talk about the line in the Bible where it says, I stand on every man's door and knock. But it is up to the people to open that door, even, because some people have their fingers in their ears that literally aren't listening for the knock. But, when you do kind of open that door, it makes that's all it takes sometimes, isn't it? So maybe if we can jump into that then, into the book, because it's heavy at times as well, isn't it? That, you really did go deep into the gang mentality and that side of things. Um, and which is great in the long run because it just shows how someone could be down that far, and come up, from that. Really show it speaks to people who feel they're in them situations. That if you can do it, they can do it. That kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it takes someone. I know you've gone through an awful lot, but sometimes it takes that person to to be the example, to set the example for everybody else, or for a lot of people. We really don't know how many people we do reach with our own stories, and I think your story. It's great that you got it out, and I think you were meant probably to publish it because it is one of those stories that is written for a reason.
Yes.
So when we're talking about this story, a lot of this takes place in your teens, I'd say, isn't it? It's 15 to 18 almost, a main part of the book.
Right.
And so, can you tell me how you fell into that yourself? Even with your father away, you fell into that kind of criminal kind of lifestyle or gang lifestyle.
Well, those were the examples we saw in the neighborhood in front of us as we were kids. I mean, it was nothing for me at 8 year old to see a drug transaction taking place across the street or in the hallway. Seeing the pimps and the prostitutes and walking the streets and the examples that we had in front of us were guys who were on the street corner, pulling in all this money, and so we aspired to be like them because we had no other examples. I mean, TV back in those days was very limited, so we didn't have any positive characters or influences from TV, and so we become a product of our environment, which is exactly what happened to me. Which is why at 18 years old, I believe that the God's mercy and grace came upon was extended to me because I literally was involved in the life that because of ignorance. And I have a saying that I told my young people is sinner see, sinner do. And as a young kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're impressionable by these people and this activity. And then you desire to be with like that because that's all you see. So
Yeah.
that's what exactly happened to me. I was a victim of my environment.
Yeah, yeah, and they say we've done a lot of reading on the kind of once you fall in among a gang of people as well, the kind of what they stand for or the gang mentality becomes who you are. You kind of lose your individuality. It's very hard to break out of that. I know you have a line in the book, and it's talking about this, two gangs coming together to fight on one particular night. I think it might be the night. After the afternoon is, I don't even know why we were fighting about when I think back on it. And it might have been you were stabbed at one stage.
Yes.
Was that the night I'm thinking of?
No, no. The I was I part of many rumbles, but the rumble that I spoke about and some of the things that I do speak about in the book are first time experiences.
Yeah.
Just to move the story along. And no, there was a first rumble that we went to, and we decided to go on a Sunday evening, try to catch them off guard.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
they were waiting for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they rained down rocks and bottles on us, and it was a very scary experience. And then of course, and the police came and things like that, and
Yeah.
so and that's when I say and the funny thing about it is no one even told us why we were rumbling in the first place.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You get into this the mindset, and it's not your own mindset all of a sudden. And you don't even think twice about it, and you run with it. There's a statistic there. I was reading from, I think it's Psych Central. It was once 5% of people in a gang have an idea, it's very easy to motivate the 95%. And it's true.
Right.
It's almost like ideas have people rather than the people have the ideas. They run with it, but. But you talk about a friend in the book, and I hope you don't mind me
No,
bringing
not at all. His name is Link, I believe you're going to mention.
the link. Yeah, but I was actually going to bring up Lozo from when you did go to school with him, and then you turned out when you told each other your secrets, you were in rival gangs, and you did come across each other at one stage. And this is actually what I was thinking of. This is when you got stabbed, isn't that right?
Correct.
That was fairly horrific kind of scene, because I can imagine you came face to face and you said, you'd imagine something was going to stop it from happening because you were friends at this point, but nothing did.
He didn't even acknowledge that he knew me at all. I mean, he just ignored that. And things happen so fast, but he had enough time, and that really bothered me for years. He had enough time to say, hey, hold up, they may be not with us, but not necessarily a rival gang. I mean, we didn't have any problems with them. We never encountered them, but things just unfolded so fast that we got surrounded and we were outnumbered. I remember my brother telling me a few days later in the hospital that the newspaper said there was somewhere between 40 to 50 of them, and there was only 9 of us. So you can imagine how much we was outnumbered. And
Yeah.
yes, and I was stabbed that night, and I was left for dead. I was stabbed and beat really bad with chains and pipes and stick, the kind of clubs and things. I'm not exactly sure all they had. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
But I was beat pretty bad, and
Remember you
I
saying
remember
it.
the doctor saying, excuse me, I remember the doctor saying that if I would an older man like a 40 or a 50-year-old, I probably wouldn't have survived it.
Really? Yeah. Wow. It must have been fairly severe.
Yeah, because at 14 and a half, you still might be, developing a little rubbery, like the babies, you can drop them and think, they're pretty durable. But as we get older, we can't withstand, trauma like that.
Yeah, you don't heal as well either. You're still growing, obviously at that age. But a couple of things that struck me from that, you at the time you were so filled with anger and rage. I remember just one line I want to quote to you. You said, "The hate and anger is like having a thirst that can never be quenched," and that's how you felt about
That's right.
that. Yeah,
And never be quenched. No
yeah,
matter what you did, you would not be satisfied because it's and I realize now from a spiritual standpoint that is a spirit, that anger, that rage. These are the kind of things that when we come to Jesus Christ, we begin to surrender, and He begins to help us through them and things like that. But yeah, it's really bad. This is why you see in the world these tyrants and things like that, and I'm not going to mention any of their names, who capture the enemies and they torture them real bad and then they kill them.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
so yes, it's they're just, no matter what they did to their enemy, or they just, it's no satisfaction.
Yeah, and it's true. I think I agree with your standpoint on it. Then different feelings are spirits that overtake you. You see it in people, you see it in groups. But in some ways, from reading your book, I realized though, in a lot of ways, maybe these type of incidents also helped you. Like there was a part where you were in a detention center and you're talking about having to prove yourself straight away.
Hmm.
And obviously you're hardened up then to a certain extent to be able to even take on that situation. So it was like you needed it when it was there, and you needed it. You could use it for keeping yourself, I'd say safe maybe, or in that particular environment, because that's not a normal everyday environment. That's not the outside world. That's its own, environment. And about this guy putting his feet in your chair the first day you're in the detention center, and you knew you had to make a point of that then straight away, kind of, or else you will be targeted. I suppose isn't that the way then these things work?
Yep.
And you often
Yep.
hear that.
Right. Right. They try you, and if and this is what I try to convey to the young people today. This is the message, the purpose of the book, to get the platform, to get the group settings, to let the people know that this is what I try to tell the young people, is that these environments you don't want to go into, and if you do, only the strong survive. It's a jungle atmosphere, and you have to you have to become a savage. And I realized I saw that happening in my life when I was there. It's like you on guard all the time, and it's like everything is violence and everything, and only the strong survive.
Yeah, and I also enjoy reading about certain things that the book in a way is like a movie in certain ways, like, because you do see scenes like that in like the likes of Sopranos, where it's the first day of the prison, but also you had a couple of escape stories,
Yeah.
in the book, and you can just imagine the pressure or the fear of that actually happening, because I imagine this is something that inmates think about every day, but actually go through with it. And you actually got pretty far, with a few of them, didn't you? You got down the road, you made it to the car dealership at that stage as well, or would you go out in the bus on a different occasion? You actually got away with that one for quite a while, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, in the first reform school that I went to was a more of a open grounds cottage type atmosphere. More like a work camp. So we were open, but we were far away from everywhere. So even if you decided, they called the AWOL. If you went AWOL, you probably couldn't get far, because the nearest town in either direction was probably, I'm not sure, I want to say 10, 15, 20 miles. So, though we were in open grounds, but we were in the middle of nowhere. So it was like, for the second reform school that was, and at that time of the early 70s, uh, juvenile like me, our activity was kind of new to society. I mean, they didn't, there was always bad juveniles, but those of us of the early 70s kind of were taking it to another level. So society really wasn't prepared for us. So we were incarcerated, and during my second escape, they had barbed wire, but it wasn't kind of like the barbed wire they have today, where you can't get away from, the big circles and the big all around. You can't get over that. But it was some barbed wire, but they just probably never thought that we would attempt something like that. But it still wasn't easy, but it wasn't as hard as it would appear to. I don't think today an inmate can do that.
Yeah, yeah, and also just talking about the prison system, you end up going to eventually Rikers Island, which is, I suppose, the maximum security penitentiary there, isn't it? It's where you found yourself, and really the set of circumstances is quite unfortunate, wasn't it? You were out and you were kind of targeted to a certain extent, um, by, you were kind of well known when you came back a bit, or your reputation had been that way, and when you were eventually, there was a kind of a framing, wasn't there, of your own character that led you to this place, which is really going in with the lowest of the lowest, or the worst of the worst, really, in that place, isn't it?
Yeah, that's something that I would never forget. That was an experience, and that place was truly, truly a jungle atmosphere. And yeah, what happened was the incident that that happened there. Besides the time that I spent there, uh, the rival gang put out a contract on me. And so this guy was going to carry it out, and so he was looking for the right opportunity. I knew people in there, so someone gave me word. Somebody let me know, hey, this guy's here. He's a professional at this. He got a couple bodies, to his credit, and so you need to watch yourself, and and that's what I did. I mean, but leading up to that, the few weeks leading up to the actual incident, it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You know, I was getting advice from old timers. They were saying this, it's like it's better to, two things you need to do. Put it in your mind when you wake up here every day, and you be at peace. You're either gonna have to kill someone, or you need to be willing to die.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the way
And
it is.
that is the jailhouse mentality. That's how you survive in prison. And you have to be ready to any given day give the sign of the cross and just be ready to check out if you have to, because it's better to live there the rest of your life with respect than one day without it. And then there's other things that can come upon you, like other things that can happen in prison. And I just do not see me being able to live with myself, allowing something like that to happen to me. So they need to know that if you want to come at me and you want to try to do anything sexual or take my property, I'm willing to die and take one of you with me. This
Yeah.
is the mentality you need to have.
Or else they'll walk all over you, and everyone will do the same, probably. But I'm only speaking from what I'm reading, obviously. But I know also within that place you got thrown into solitary confinement for 30 days. I believe it was this 23-hour lockdown.
23 and a half.
23.5 hour lockdown. And can you talk a bit of what that's like? That's very hard to even imagine. Even keeping your sanity in a small confined space for that long.
Well, ironically, our former president, Obama, just signed an executive order before he left office to put an end to that solitary confinement for juveniles, because it's really, really, really detrimental to us. I only spent 30 days, and I tell you, I would never forget that. People say, oh, maybe 30 days, but when you spend 30 days in solitary confinement, 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, one day at a time, it is long. And it was the month of August, and I was in the middle of our prison is surrounded by the East River, which is where all the human waste goes of New York City, and the walls be sweating. You can get the stench. I mean, I really I don't know how I ever survived that. And I told you, just that 30 days alone. I'm not saying that I never anything I ever done in life. I felt to that point I paid for it in that 30 days, because it was a tough 30 days. And I'm telling you, a lot of guys couldn't do it. I seen every day somebody was cutting their wrists. Someone was trying to hang themselves. Someone was trying to set the cell on fire. Someone was always because you can go crazy.
Yeah, and also, the guards didn't make it any easier. I know what you said, the way they'd say about if there's a fire in here, you guys aren't getting out because they wouldn't have the time even. And the worrying thing was they weren't just threatening. That is actually true. That they wouldn't have the time to release you if anything like that were to happen. You're bottom of the bottom at that stage.
Yeah, every night someone would yell, "We're gonna die in here tonight. I'm gonna burn this so and so down." And you knew, I mean, you got accustomed to it. I would still go to sleep and say, whatever, whatever. If it's gonna be, it's gonna be. I just couldn't worry no more. The worry outweighed the stress of the worry outweighed the actual it happening. So I would just say, I'm going to see. I don't care. But we knew that it was possible because it was an old prison at the time, the section they had us in, and it was the kind where the guards had to come and open each cell individually with a key, and they're not going to be able to open 55 cells on one tier. Somebody's going to die. He might get one or two of us out, but he ain't going to get the rest of us out. So we know we would die.
Yeah.
So we had to live with that 30 days, knowing that, hey, today might be my last day.
It's crazy. It's I can't. Most people won't ever imagine what what it's like to go through something like that. But I
I don't
guess,
recommend it.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Um, but when you came back then from when you were released, you kind of came across a new influence kind of on the street, albeit small, the Pentecostal groups. I know this is where Sister Rodriguez comes into things, and this is her introduction into your life at this point. Um, Not that straight away. There was big things happening. She was kind of in and out for a little while, wasn't she? She was like always trying to get you around to drop by the church, which she obviously weren't that interested in at the time. Can you talk about how she kind of built her trust with you? It seems like, it seems very scary. You can imagine, her walking in among gangs, not knowing their nature or anything like that, it was very difficult for any one person to do it, But how did she catch your ears? How did she eventually get you to get on that
Well,
bus?
well, first of all, what we liked about Sister Rodriguez is she has spunk. We admired her. I mean, and she also displayed to us a love that we've never seen before. I mean, I'll be honest, we're tough gang members and things like that. We're still only 14, 15 years old. We still would like to have, be cuddled and be loved. We just never had that. And she came and she was like a surrogate mom to us. I mean, she showed us love and attention and compassion and something we've never seen it before. And the main thing about Sister Rodriguez that we embraced about her is that she was real. You can just see the realness about her. And she was a lady of strong faith, and she genuinely cared for us. I mean, we never had anyone who cared for us. She cared about us eating. She cared about our physical health. She cared about that we have regular checkups and things like that. How were we doing? In our bodies. I mean, she just genuinely showed us care and love. And on top of that, she introduced us to Jesus Christ, and she did all of this as a woman of God.
That's right, yeah. And something, she eventually did manage to send a bus for you to go to the church, I remember you saying even on the bus there was a lot of, like, drinking and smoking and all,
We were
it
hanging
wasn't,
out the window.
yeah, it wasn't
We
your
were
right.
hanging out the windows, yelling at people, whistling at the girls, just being rowdy and having fun. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the bus driver, I never forget. I couldn't tell you his name, but he was just so at peace. He was driving like we weren't even on the bus. It was like it was his mission, his contribution to his service of the Lord Jesus Christ, and he didn't care. He was going to get us there and get us back, and
Yeah, yeah. But something happened in that church, and it was with, I'm trying to recall his name. Was it Fridge or
Hammer.
Hammer? Sorry, yeah. Before, you went in and you went up the front, and on the way out, something strange happened. He fell to his knees there and then. He explained what took place there.
Well, I think of that often, and it's just one of those things that you can't really put your finger on what happened. It was definitely the spirit of God. It was definitely divine intervention. It was definitely supernatural. Prior to that, us going to church, he had just come out of the hospital. He was involved in a bad car accident. He stole a car. He had one of our other gang brothers with him, and the car hit a pole, split in half really bad. He was disfigured, his face, he was really bad. The other guy died, and he felt responsible for his death, and it was haunting him. And that day in the church, I guess the spirit of God was moving. At the time I didn't know, but I can say that now. The spirit of God was moving upon us, and or the anointing was there upon the pastor and Sister Rodriguez, that it just hit him so hard that on the way out he fell to his knees and he started crying. I can't remember everything he was saying, but he was like, we didn't know how to pray or anything, and we didn't know, the difference between Jesus and God and all of that. But he was just, crying out, uh, please forgive me. And he was And the amazing thing about it is that he was a tough guy.
Yeah, he
I
was
see.
like your biggest guy, wasn't he? He was like for him to do that in front of all of you, I'd imagine, was a
It
shock.
had to be real. It was definitely God.
Yeah,
It was nothing else but God. The Spirit of God moving upon him. And the funny thing, we stopped there and we all started looking at him. And I remember the pastor and a few other elderly, I guess the deacons or whoever they were, the elders of the church rushed over and they all started praying on him, praying over him. And then I remember it's like we all dropped to our knees, like it, and we talked about it. And even today, I couldn't talk about this with a natural minded person because they would not understand. But it was like something pushed us down. I felt a weight on me. It's like get on your knees. It's like almost like I guess you on holy ground. This is my turf. And we all just kind of like we all didn't weep. I don't think I wept, but everybody prayed for us and laid hands on us. And I remember people praying and laying hands, and I guess we must have been down there about 10, 15 minutes.
really, wow.
Um, and then we just something happened. We got up and we marched out to the bus, and I remember we rode the bus back home, to the neighborhood. We didn't have a home. It's just our neighborhood, and nobody said a word. It's just like we all had this experience, and nobody can explain it.
I'd say it was probably a strange sight if you say you live nearby, sitting out in your garden, seeing a bus pull up, and you're all shouting out the window and drinking and smoking, and seeing everyone in silence driving back on the bus. Are these the same guys? You
We
know,
were definitely subdued. Yep, we
yeah.
were definitely subdued.
And obviously by something very powerful because there was quite a few of you there as well, wasn't there? There was.
Yeah, there was a few dozen of us, about 30, 40, 50. We always went around in a mob, so that and any given day, there was 10, 15 of us together.
Yeah.
You had to, I mean, because we had learned that experience the night, that night that I got stabbed. That you need to keep your numbers strong because they come in numbers at you.
The strength in numbers, yeah. But also, then the church group kind of moved off for a few weeks, and you kind of you dropped a bit, I'd say, into maybe you call it depression, like you overdosed. Isn't that right? Uh,
Yeah, we were. I remember there were barbiturates, seconds, tuberose, volumes, and we didn't know much about that. If I have to say anything that there's positive about the gang is that yes, we might have smoked and drank and things like that, but we didn't do. We really were very much against hard narcotics.
yeah, yeah,
So we used to fight the drug dealers in the neighborhood, the junkies, and things like that. We didn't like it because most of us experienced had a lot of bad experiences in our families because of our drugs. Either someone was robbed, someone was killed, someone was strung out on drugs. I mean, so we were very much against that. And so I that day, me and one of the other guys, we decided stupid youthful things that we dropped a few pills and didn't know uh, the different doses about it or anything. So the next thing I know, I started feeling drowsy and started hyperventilating some and sweating and very disorientated. And I guess everybody else picked up on what was happening. They walked me around. I remember gave me water, things like that. And the next thing I know, I passed out. And then I came to and I can hear Sister Rodriguez's voice. And she ordered them, I guess, to take me up to my mother's apartment. I don't know how much they stripped me, but I know that they took off my clothes and I'm sure they put cold compressors upon me and things, and I'm sure she did. She was praying, and I remember hearing her pray, and felt myself drifting away.
yeah. That's right. You had almost like a near death experience here. It sounds like, doesn't it?
Yeah, out of body experience. I wasn't hovering over my body or anything, but I can feel myself drifting away from everything, and I can still hear it, but it sounds she sounded so far away. Um, and you know, during those I don't know what it was, an hour or two moments. I don't know, it was seconds. Wherever I was going was a lot of darkness, and I felt a lot of heat.
Yeah, I remember
Uh,
reading that the darkness and it's kind of heat, you know. So obviously,
and
you know, what you think of straight away is that you weren't going to the right place anyway. You know, doesn't sound like the comfortable place to be going to.
yeah, it's not the place I want to go, and it's the place I want to keep everybody I come in contact from away from. Um, and then the next thing I know, I just woke up. Didn't know how long I was out or anything, and I guess it must have been a long time because everyone, now that I look back, my mother, Sister Rodriguez, a few of the neighbors were there, and they seemed pretty tired, worn out. So I'm sure they were laboring with me a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an experience I'll never forget.
I was going
That
to
it's one of the experiences that made me a believer today.
really, yeah, yeah. I suppose all these things probably were building you up slowly, weren't they? Like even Hammer's experience in front of Ollie and your own experience that day, and the likes of that as well, and the influence of Sister Rodriguez, and but also, you know, she invested a lot in you as well, didn't she? Like not just time, but even, you know, I was reading about the protest about the racist cop, where she, you know, would put up the bail money for you to get you out. It was like she was putting a lot of faith in you as a character. She kind of clicked with you, didn't she? In a lot of ways, you and her made a kind of one-on-one connection.
Yeah, she showed me, and I live by this today, the unconditional love of Jesus Christ. I have a young man today that I'm visiting. He's in prison for murder. Well, actually, he's in detention for murder, but he's in the process of going to court for trial and things like that, which is set for sometime early, I think February of 2020. And 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 I've learned from that the unconditional love, surrender of Jesus Christ, and that's what she showed me. She wasn't judgmental in any way. She wasn't condoning or condemning.
Yeah,
She was just the servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. She was right in the middle. Lord, like whatever you're gonna do, I'm here for it, Lord. Use me either way, whatever you need to do. And so I learned what it is to be an unconditional servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I also learned that there's no such thing as a bad person. I believe that everyone could be redeemed if they want to, and one's life can be turned around and be a constructive life in Jesus Christ.
yeah, absolutely. And there's also around this time a couple of attempts on your life where this also was a strange kind of experience or coincidence, maybe, where you turn around and there's, well, first of all, there's two shots whiz by your head, and you turn around, there's a guy with a gun to your head, which sounds like a point blank range. You know, what's going through your mind at this stage? You know, when you standing there.
Well, I speak about that incident because of at the time that it happened, and but I've had many experiences like that. So not that I was accustomed to it, but it's like I've been there before, but you know uh, you it, I never really could put it in words. I mean, I was scared. I knew I had to do something, but his gun jammed and he took off running.
Yeah,
I guess at one time I probably would have chased him, but I just remember sat down. I was relieved because I was as good as dead. I was a goner. I mean, there is no way. It had to be divine intervention. Can no one tell me there is no Lord Jesus Christ? Just that night alone, never mind the other things that happened, the other things that God has proved Himself to me. There is no way that God was not there that night or showing Himself for who He is to me, because I was a dead man, and it happened so fast. I got caught off guard. I'm normally on guard. I don't normally creep, let people creep up on me. And I guess I must have been so deep in thought of about my future, my depression, what I was going to do. that this guy just came out of nowhere, and on a Sunday night, and
Like,
it's just something that I've gone over it probably thousands of times in my mind, and I just it had to be God. There is no way that it was not the angels of the Lord there, because I mean, two shots at the back of my head as I'm going down the steps at the same time, and then the gun jams. But you know one thing I remember, I never forget, the look on his face.
yeah, that's you couldn't believe it. Yeah.
I always said to myself, if I'm ever gonna do something like that, I'm gonna take two guns with me, because you never know what happens. But I thank God I never got
But
involved after
that
that
wasn't the
anything
end
like
of
that.
it, unfortunately. With I know you also said about the club, incident where you went down to the basement, because that's obviously where the restroom was, and you come across a guy like these weren't just random encounters. Obviously, this is probably rival gang, and obviously they were out to do you in one way or the other. And you got into a bit of a skirmish with this guy, when the gun went off, and you found yourself then in a big trial. Um,
Yep.
and this one was again, this time as well. Talking about Sister Rodriguez, she had, for the first time, you had a proper actual attorney. Didn't she? It wasn't free legal aid at this stage. She was actually looking for. No, she obviously put in a lot of money in and time and faith into it. She believed you straight out, right, and she trusted you, and so you had a bit of a fighting chance in your corner this time round.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. She remember he was named Paul Silverstein, and a tough Jewish guy. He was really something. Um, yeah, that night what happened was, I guess I was being watched again, and they were looking for an opportunity. Now I did have some of my boys with me that night, but of course I don't take them to the bathroom with me. So I went downstairs and I came out. I remember the guy. It was kind of dingy, dark down there, and he says, "You know what day it is?" And I'm laughing up there, and yeah, it's Saturday party night. It's like, and then I see the gun. And so I guess what he was trying to say, what day it is the day you're going to get plugged.
yeah,
So, we rehearsed this over and over, that if anybody, even today, I live by this. God forbid, I don't go anywhere where people have guns, but you just never know. Especially what's happening in America today. I'm not going to take. I'm not no tough guy. I'm not no hero, but I'm not going to take a standing bullet.
yeah,
I mean, you're going to earn your bullets. So this guy, he took more than a split second to pull the trigger. So I charge him, and we're fighting for the gun, and the gun goes off. I didn't put it. I had put it in the book where the publisher that wanted to take it out. He actually got shot in his groin.
oh really?
Yeah, I mean, we had a joke about it. He almost became a she, and so that ironically that helped out a lot, because from the hospital reports and things like that, they can see that the bullet came down, not in or up. So
That's
it
right.
you know
Yeah,
it confirmed the story of me fighting him for the gun. I guess maybe when he loaded the gun he was drunk, because there was his fingerprints when I was on the bullets and on the gun. And you know I remember giving the gun to Sister Rodriguez, and she gave it to the lawyer, and he turned it into the district attorney, and they did whatever they had to do. And so all the evidence came back confirming that it wasn't my gun, and I was a victim. And but it still took like 18 days to clear me.
no,
So, I told people today that, you think just because you can get someone to go up on self-defense, there's still a due process that has to take place. You're not going home tonight.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
best to avoid situations at all costs, even if it is a self-defense case,
yeah.
because you're not gonna just give a police report and walk away. There's a process, and mine took 18 days, and I thought mine was pretty short compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, I can imagine. But in the meantime, you are kind of in Sister Rodriguez's custody almost, and I guess she's this is also working on your mental state as well, or your spiritual state, really. Because I know you decided to. I know your friend Hammer. You made peace with Lozo. And he obviously gets sentenced because he goes down the road of drug dealing, and Hammer gets murdered. And kind of while you're getting a chance to see, the different ways that criminal lifestyle can end, you're being sent on the right path, and it's kind of showing in a way that there's only one way out, or one or two bad ways out of that lifestyle, really. And had you stayed going down that road, that would most likely have been your fate also. You're in the same environment, same gangs of these guys, but by your story, you were saved for it. And I'd say I can imagine that's still all down with you. It's in a lot of ways, trying to get in this. And I know when you were saying you were trying to get on the straight and narrow, a lot of offers were coming in, and money was tempting you back into that lifestyle. And I often say, when you kind of change, when you come almost like born again in these kind of things, it's like someone dropping a ladder down in a cave, and when you grab that ladder, they are every bad thing in the cave is rushing out to grab you and keep you pulled down, And I suppose this was you hanging onto the ladder while things are pulling at you back, people offering you money, and you were trying to go straight and narrow, and you're getting very low pay for the kind of jobs you were doing, I'd say it was very tough, to keep your how would you say, keep headstrong and keep going straight while all that was happening.
Yes. I told my young people, one of my famous sayings is that every day that we get up, we have two roads ahead of us. Which one are you going to take? Yeah, I remember those were some tough times because at that point, and I knew it, it was time to pay for my bad choices, not going to school, thinking, I want to be my own man, growing up too fast, doing what I want to do. So it was time to pay. And this is what I told the young people today is that, the choices you make today, make sure you can live with them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
And it comes back. And I knew it. And, that bothered me. And, there's nothing more pitiful, more hurtful than a man or a young man developing, beginning to understand things of life, and you can't sustain yourself with employment, and you have to do dead end work and things, and minimal labor and things like that. And I'm not saying that's bad, because those people who do those things, they're good people as well, but it hurts, how you're gonna get you want a life, you're thinking about a wife, maybe even kids, and you're not asking for great riches, but you want to be able to earn enough money to to pay your bills, and go to a restaurant every once in a while and things. So yeah.
I'd say it is disheartening, or whatever like that, but I know you obviously had the strength. You were getting a lot of help, I suppose, even if you didn't know you were, probably. And then this came time when you decided to surrender to Jesus, isn't that right? And you kind of you repented on a lot of your life at that point, wasn't it?
Yes. I just want to say that the time, it was 7 years, I believe, between Sister Rodriguez and me surrendering.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't happen overnight. I thought, I went on trying to do life on my own, and and I was learning that, and I was encountering a lot of situations at work and with people, that and I was learning of myself. I was growing up because I was developing to a man, and learning myself, and I realized at one point that though I wasn't in the gangs anymore, but I still had a gang mentality, because I don't know how many coworkers realize, they were wiped out every day, in my mind. It's like I would look at them and say, you just don't know how close you are to being gutted.
Yeah.
It's like,
But that's
and
all
that
true
bothered
though as well.
me. That bothered me because I didn't, that bothered me, and I realized that I was rotten on the inside. Though on the outside I was a different person. I cut my hair. I used cologne, things like that. But on the inside, I was still that person that and I realized at that point that it's like having an automobile. You can work on it on the weekends. You can do certain things, but eventually you're gonna have to take it back to the one that made it, the manufacturer, to fix it up.
Yeah.
And and I realized that with me, so
Yeah.
I surrendered, and didn't happen overnight, but even today I grew some today. It's a salvation and learning of Jesus Christ. It's a lifelong process.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it's a constant knowledge, building exercise. And the more you read on it, and the more you look into it, and the more you develop, you build that relationship stronger, and you become, wiser with it. There's a line I think in the Old Testament that you know, wisdom comes after the fear of God. And it's true. You start to really understand what it's saying in a lot of ways. And that's why I wanted to. That's why I was in Israel. That's why I wanted to go there because it's become very important in my life over the last few years, and I wanted to look at it. Something happened to me as well. It was an experience that couldn't be explained, and I was kind of on the fence before that, and I said, well, if this is going to be an important thing in my life going forward, I want to know, evidentially, is this true? Historically, could this be true? I want to know cosmologically, could this be true? I started reading neuroscience. I started going into every aspect of it, and the more I read, the more I found evidence for it, and I couldn't believe it. And I spoke to other people. Sometimes you think of when you're not religious in any way, you think of religious people in the church, you have a bad, there's a dogmatic kind of thing you think about where, these people aren't intelligent, these guys, they're just, going mumbling along and they don't know really science behind things and that. But then you look at all these theological books and, professors, and I realized the whole scientific revolution was founded by Christians. And, even going to Israel was important for me to stand where certain events happened and just built me more and more in my faith, and kind of lights,
Amen.
it lights up your spirit. It gave me a big drive coming home, even to, straight away, I wanted to get you on because I read your book while over there, and it's also a great story of faith and of what your faith can do, or what even open the door slightly, can do, the impact it can have on people's lives. And I think that's why your book is so important. That's why I've been talking about people to it. It's not a long book, but it really is one of those stories from. You get a lot of these stories, rags to riches. This is that story, but in a spiritual way. You know what I mean? It's that's the way I see it.
From
Uh,
sinner to saint.
yeah, yeah, or from gangs to God. That's what I use.
There you go. I like that.
But yeah, you also you did manage to land a job. You were going through career kind of guidance, and you did come. This printing job came up. Isn't that right? You were
Yes,
delighted.
I'm still a printer today.
Yeah, that's how you that's where you kicked off, isn't it? And you
Yeah.
also, in the meantime, you went and became the unordained youth minister,
Yes.
and that's what you
Yes.
do today. And this is obviously what you're talking about with this guy on in incarceration at the moment. You speak with. And what do you do there? Do you help them find their faith?
Well, I not necessarily. I just show them, a love and a compassion. The sister Rodriguez showed me. I learned a lot from her, and just got them through. They're going through a rough time in their life. Just got them through. You don't have to preach to them or say a whole lot to them. Actually, what I do, because I've learned a lot because of personal experiences, of the criminal justice system and how the criminal justice system works. So actually, what I do is I kind of like guide them through on a daily basis, explain to them what's the next process, what they can expect, and things like that. I help lawyers look at different jury candidates for the jury, um, strategies for for the defense. These are things that I have learned, and with the Spirit of God guiding me, it's in righteousness too. So
It's a great calling, isn't
yeah, it's great. It could be sad at times. It could be sad at times, frustrating as well. But yes, I'm great. I don't believe there's anything that there's a bad kid in the world. I believe we all can be redeemed and fixed up if we want to. So who am I to say who's a candidate and who is not? My
it?
job is just to go and show the unconditional love of Jesus Christ, be a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ, not look down on anyone unless I'm helping them up, and see who at the end of the day, or at the end of time, who's standing, on the right hand of God.
Yeah, yeah. And did your father come to faith? Was it through seeing you, or was it his own
Well,
revelation?
ironically, I have my father had three sets of kids for three different marriages, and I was from marriage two. So from marriage three, um, two of the brothers are preachers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, we just recently got reunited in recent years. So yeah, I got two brothers that are pastors, and so uh, when I showed up, with my faith, it was like the old man knew something. He knew it was more than just coincidence.
Very
One,
wrong.
maybe two, but the third one that didn't grow up with one and two, or three and four, whatever they were. I think I was two, so they're three and four. And the old man knew that God was real, and he had heard, he knew, throughout the years, the things that I was going through and things like that. So to run into me as a man at 28 after he came out of prison, um, and see me, with a family, with a career, loving, serving the Lord Jesus Christ, he was just taken back, And the only regret I have about the book is I left out one small story. Is that when my father and I were reunited after all these years, separation, I told him we went to a carnival in Baltimore Harbor here in Baltimore, Maryland. And they had a carnival and they had a merry-go-round. And I told him that he owed me and that I would never ask him ever again for anything, but he needed to go on the merry-go-round with me. And me and my dad got cotton candy.
Yeah.
I never forget, I sat on the pig, he sat on the horse. And as they went up and down, we went around, and I was a 5-year-old for once in my life.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's just good. I can imagine the scene. Um, what was I going to ask you there? When did you actually write this book?
I wrote this book. I believe it was published June 2017.
Okay, so it is very recent.
Yeah, recent. I sat on it for a long time. I had it in my safe, and I didn't think that anyone would be interested. And to be honest with you, brother Casey, I have received some rejection because of it, even from, unfortunately, some people in the church. I think that people are looking for more like a book of from the streets or from gangs to Oxford or Harvard. That's not my story.
No.
My story is, hey, I come from the streets. I was rescued, literally rescued by Jesus Christ. He gave me a new life, and today, He taught me how to be a man. He made me a man today. He taught me the things of value. He taught me the value of hard work. Through His teachings of the scriptures, He taught me to know that, there's no respect of persons. He taught me to know that we are valued because of who we are, not what we have or what job title we have or what political affiliation we have. The integrity and self-respect is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's how I live my life today. Integrity and self-respect. Be a man of my word, and those are the things that value a man. I realize that, and I also tell my young people, it doesn't matter whether you're a Rockefeller or a poor fella. When you're on that slab in the morgue, you're equal, and only what you do for Christ is going to last.
Yeah, you can't take any of them stuff with you. But it's funny when you say that. I was a few years ago when I started my faith started rebuilding. My grandmother was very religious, and she'd have fights with the family. A lot of who are my uncles and aunties and that. They all just let her at it, kind of thing. But she was really an influential person in her neighborhood. She would organize a lot of things. Everyone knew her as that person. But I rang her up, and really, what had happened. I hadn't realized what happened. I had this kind of spiritual awakening, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I rang her up and I told her, and I asked her. I said, "Listen, can you help me obtain two things?" And I said, "I'm looking for a Bible, and I'm looking for." That picture, that classic picture of Jesus, I trust in you. The painting, and we used to have one in our house years ago. Even though my parents wouldn't really be Christians, but it would always have it around. And I asked for them two things, and she said, "Well, I'll do better. I won't just help you find one. I have them things, and if you'll let me, I'll give you them." I said, "Okay." Well, when I hung up the phone to her, she rang my father, who's atheist, and she bawled her eyes out because she had just prayed the night before for at least one person in her family. She was getting old, and she wanted at least one person in the family to find their faith. And she told me afterwards, and she got very sick straight away, almost like within a month or two, and we had planned these. We lived in different counties, so we had planned on having a lot of sleep. I was going to stay over with her a good bit and talk to her about it. We never got really around to that, but her influence, I have the cross in my kitchen now that she passed on. She passed in front of us all, but she gave me the New Testament, and just what you're saying about Jesus' life, I every time I read some lines of it, I don't really highlight it, but I write it in my phone. I have these notes in my phone that just some of the things he said in parables or even just lines, they're so intelligent for even if he was just a man. They're so incredibly deep and intelligent. No one even speaks like that anymore, but they're timeless. All these lines, and they're just like statements, and they're mind blowing. Really, there's so much guidance in it. If he was just a man, he was the most intelligent man who's ever walked, almost. So I really hold on to them things and look at them often. And it's only been positive. It's just positive sayings, and I think it's great. But so when you say you sat in the story for a long time, what made you turn around and say, "I'm going to write this now"? What was the
Well,
turning point?
I actually, the Spirit of God was petitioning me. I started not having peace about it. One of the things I know about my relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ is intact is because I'm experiencing something that I never did before in the world, and that's peace. I do have a peace, as the Bible says, that passes all understanding. And when that begins to get rocky and things, I know God is trying to get my attention. I think each and every one of us should know uh, in our relationship with when God is trying to get our attention.
Yeah,
And I did everything I could to get out of it. I did not want to do this. I just didn't want to really put all this out there. I mean, for one, to be honest with you, I didn't think anybody really be interested, but then I realized that it's not my story. I'm just a caretaker of it. It's my testimony to the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, I went at it with God, with Jesus over and over, and I told him, who's going to believe it? Half that stuff, nobody's going to believe it. And he says, in my spirit, he tells me, tell me about it. I know exactly how you feel. People don't believe me. People don't believe the virgin birth. People don't believe I walked on water. People don't believe I rose from the dead. And it's like, so welcome to my world, son. It's like, okay, if we must, and then I went ahead and did it, and here we are today on your podcast.
Yeah, well, that rings the bell with me a bit because for the last couple of years, even though I was saying that I had a renewing of faith, I wasn't doing much with it. Yeah, I was doing some volunteer work locally and stuff like that, but kind of visiting old people through different organisations and things like that. But I wasn't. The start of this year, I was driving to work in the mornings, and there was something going on in my head that I wasn't doing what I could have been doing. There was something that I could be doing that would be a bit meaningful or significant. And it was really like a calling, and it resonates with me when you say that, because it was at that point, and I really do think that these things happen like in perfect timing sometimes as well. There's a right time for a lot of things. You come across people at certain times while you're working on certain projects that influence certain things and have a ripple effect. And it was, I think, in May at the start of this year that it just got to a stage where there was something I was saying out loud. I know there's a calling there, but I just need to see a sign of what it is. I don't know what it is. And I remember looking at, me and my brother play music, and we played it all around the country, kind of acoustic guitars and singing. We've done that for years. We had all this equipment sitting up, and it was kind of summertime, and we had microphones and all this kind of thing. And then I was listening to we're watching a lot of YouTube and testimonies and looking at podcasts and things like that. And then it kind of dawned on me one day that I had all the equipment for podcasts, microphones, mixers, everything just sitting there. Like, a lot of people had to invest like $1,000 or 1,500 quid to even get going on these things. But I had it all, and I was sitting at the back garden, and I was watching my son play, and the sun was out, and I had a pen and pad, so I knew something was coming, and I just started writing. And that was one of the first pictures I have up on Instagram, was the idea, and it was training and thought. And for years, my mantra was, if you're physically and mentally ready for the world, you'll succeed. But there was always something missing, and it was the spiritual ready for the world, because I think you really need that. I was missing something before that, and it's training, thought, and truth. It's truth for a reason, and it's for I am the way, the truth, and that's why it is there, and I kind of ease people into a bit where the first few episodes are all fitness based kind of, and then I'd ask at the end of it, so where's your motivation come from? Are you atheist? Are you Christian? Yeah, get mixed reports on that, but really, like, then, my last few episodes have been very spiritually based, very Christian based, and I was talking a lot about it. And then a lot of stuff was coming up that was more like that, and I was kind of hold off on it a bit. And I was like, well, people who are more to the fitness side will walk away from it. And then I just said, look, I have to keep these rolling. I have to just follow whatever is being brought to me, and now I feel like as though I'm not dictating this anymore, like once I finish an episode, there's another one there, and it's down along the same lines. And funny, these are the ones above the fitness ones. You can see this demographic worldwide, of people in Australia and America and all watching it, and they're watching the ones that are talking about Christianity and the testimonies. And people want to hear these stories. They're raw stories. Everyone can go to the gym and lift weights or go out for a run. But when you have a story, when you're, when your life changes because of this overbearing force, it's very interesting to people. You often do watch debates on YouTube, atheists versus Christians, and even the atheists are watching it so much and commenting. You know, it's an important topic for everybody. You know, and that there's a drive towards it. You know, but I get what you mean when you say the calling. You know, and I think that it's great that you did get it, even though it is. But and I think that I got it at the same time, and it probably works out well for us talking here now because it's the same time we crossed over on it as well. But I think it's a great book, and that book, you know, I think it would be great as well. You know, something that's kind of overtaken books reaching young people is the audio book. Did you ever think of releasing it as an audio file?
Yeah, that's also available, through the
Oh, you have it
uh,
like that, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
very good. Okay.
Um, the name of the other evades me at the moment. Oh, this is still new to me. Yeah, it's available in audio
Is
as
it? Yeah.
well.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, so
Yes.
I wasn't too sure. Yeah, because I was going to say that even at the end of this podcast, I was going to put a link of where you can find the book because I really do recommend it. And you know, obviously, you know, I have no other reason to say that. You know, to go and read the book. I think it's a great book, and probably as well hit home for where I was at the time, at the place in the world when I read it. You know, was the Holy Land. You know, so I had a few external factors kind of.
That's on my bucket list. I'll be there one
Well,
day. Yeah.
you won't regret it either. You know, we did Nazareth and we did Sea of Galilee. I was rebaptized in the River Jordan. I went and I saw the Garden of Gethsemane, the tomb. It's amazing. You know, I brought my girlfriend who was kind of dragged along. You know, but you know, she enjoyed it as well. You know, and I have to say it's one of these one in a lifetime kind of trips. You get two planes to, but it really is an amazing place. You know, but you know, one thing I was going to ask you, why did you pick that title? Actually, you know, it's an allude to John 3:16. You know, what for God so loved even me. Did you come across that one day and say, you know what?
Well, that title came up because if God can take the time and the effort and everything that they went through to save someone like me, to orchestrate how my salvation came around, to send Sister Rodriguez to the neighborhood and things like that, and me being nobody, I was nothing. I was just, to the world, at that time, I was nothing. I was written off. I was scum. I was, we were insignificant. We were just sucking up the fresh air of the world. But yet, God saw fit to orchestrate his servant coming to the neighborhood and me being a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ because of it today. So, yes. So it isn't that like I was anything special. I wasn't. Was less than special, but yet he took the time to save me.
Very good. And a final question for you: what does Sister Rodriguez mean to yourself? You know, in your life story, what part does she play? Really, you know.
Well, I believe in heaven right now that they say we get rewards and we get crowns. I believe that she reeled in a big fish, and she showed me what guts is, and determination, what faith is. I mean, she had her moments with us. I mean, don't think that everybody was very friendly to us. I remember one time police tried to intimidate her because they were told to stay away when she was around, to stay away from us, and the cops didn't like that. And when I remember a cop was questioning her from the police car, saying, "Who do you know?" She says, "I have friends in high places." And he says, "Well, who do you know? The captain?" She goes, "Higher than that." She says, "Who? The commissioner?" Said, "Higher than that." "Oh, don't tell me you know the mayor." She says, "Higher than that." He says, "Well, who do you know?" She says, "The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords." I'll never forget that. And
No, I'd say she
so
sounds like she must have had an impact. She's almost a role model for your life. It sounds like the impact she had made you on your life is what the impact you're making on other people's lives now through your ministry. And you know, it's you know, these people give up their whole lives for these things. You know, nuns like that, they give up a family life and staying at home and following their own, pleasures and things like that. But it's great to see that, these things do work, them going into these neighborhoods, they are saving lives. I think it's amazing. And listen, Fred, I really appreciate you coming on. And I'm going to link below at the places you can find your book. And I really do recommend everyone read it because I think it's a great story. And it took a lot of courage to pen it and to get it out there. But I'm glad you did. So
Thank you, Casey, brother Casey. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank all my Instagram family out there who are listening for your love and your support. And I just want to say that if you don't raise your kids, the devil sure will.
yeah, yeah. That's great, and I really appreciate you coming on. And look, we'll keep in contact as well.
I sure will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you very much. Peace out. God bless.
Peace. You too, sir. Thank you.